Happy New Year! Good morning. It is 11:45 a.m. on January 1st, 2017. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. In an astounding stroke of luck, I have managed to come down feeling sick on the last day of vacation and the first day of the new year. If I put any real stock in New Year's, that would be a bad sign, but I don't really believe in bad signs that way. So, whatever. But today is all about Avatar: The Last Airbender, Season 1, Episode 19, The Siege of the Northern Water Tribe. I think that's the right title, Part 1. As I discussed in last week's Avatar rewatch, the temptation to just go ahead and roll right into Part 2 was pretty significant. I really wanted to just go ahead and continue, but I decided not to because I didn't want to confuse my own recap of this episode, and I also didn't really want to do both of them in this episode. So I'm just going to, I'm still only talking about 19. But obviously, this is big time plot stuff, a lot of things going on. So let's kind of just talk about each of the characters individually. We have let's start with Zuko and Iroh. So when we last left them last episode, Zuko had infiltrated one of Zhao's ships, dressed as just one of his rank-and-file soldiers, allowing Zhao to think he's dead. Iroh, having agreed to serve Zhao as a ruse in order to cover Zuko's infiltration. So, as far as we can tell, other than secretly meeting with Zuko and having that ulterior plan, he seems to be giving Zhao reasonably good advice. For example, one of the things that we learn is that firebenders are stronger during the day when the sun is up, whereas waterbenders are stronger during the night when the moon is up, especially during a full moon. And that kind of ties in with the idea that this comet that's coming makes firebenders super strong. And so the idea that they would suspend the attack during the during the nighttime is interesting, and it also produces an interesting dynamic later with Zuko. But Zuko spends a significant chunk of the episode just making his way into the city, and I will say that I wish that his daring swim under the ice wall, I feel like I would have been more invested in that if it had felt more intentional rather than accidental. Because it seems like he was just rowing in there with a rowboat with no plan and then just randomly decides, hey, well, what are those turtle seals doing? And just diving into, for all he knows, what could be a blind cave. He doesn't know it goes all the way inside. And so the swimming is cool, and he's super tough for making it through that and all that. I just sort of feel like I wish that they had that had somehow been his plan all along, for him to just intuit that the ice, the wall, it must be, it's not solid down to the ground underneath the water. But anyway, that's fine enough. And so, of course, he, makes his way inside, and manages to show up in the spiritual nexus right when Aang is trying to do his meditation. And in the meantime, we also have an interesting conversation with Iroh and Zhao at the first part, where Zhao is basically all caught up in how important he is, and oh, well, it's just going to be great when history records me as the victor of this glorious battle. And Iroh kind of points out, sometimes when people go down in history, it's not for what they wanted. And Zhao kind of makes a crack about how, well, you'd know, wouldn't you, after the historic failure of the Battle of Ba Sing Se, which we still don't have all of the details on, other than it seems connected to Iroh having lost his son, which ties in, of course, to just as Zuko is leaving to go on this mission, we have such a really touching emotional moment between Zuko and Iroh, where Iroh is basically just giving him the parental be careful speech, but Iroh is usually so, collected, that to see him so upset is moving. And he specifically talks about, having lost his son and having come to think of Zuko as his own, especially since, and that's meaningful for both Iroh and Zuko, especially since Zuko's real father is such a jerk. And to have them have this really touching moment. And, it's one of the things that I think makes this show so great is that you can have these characters that are, ostensibly are the antagonists if you're looking at it from a big plot perspective, like they're trying to capture the Avatar. That's bad, right? They're trying to do it so they can get back in nice with the Fire Lord. That he's the bad guy, right? Except that we see clearly that they're very complex characters emotionally, and there's conflict there, and emotion and passion. It's good stuff. But so we leave Iroh still at Zhao's side, and Zuko having captured Aang, walking through the icy plain above the city, it not being 100% clear what his plan from there is. Is it going to be easy for him to get back to his boat? Is that even the plan? Because at some point, see, this is again a little bit like his plan going under the wall, is that I wish it felt like he knew what he was doing more, or at least had an idea of what the plan was, even if he had to improvise in the moment. I don't know. It's a minor nit to pick there. So let's zip back over to the Aang gang. Let's talk a little bit about Sokka. Sokka is having his heartstrings kind of get yanked back and forth because he really likes Princess Yua, and even though he's kind of through sort of a force of effort made himself try to feel okay with the idea that she's engaged and, well, can't they just be friends and spend time together? But it's actually her that is having too much pain from that, just in the sense of spending time with this boy that she likes, and likes presumably more than her betrothed, is just a reminder of the situation she's in, where she's going to be forced to marry someone she apparently doesn't like. And that's too hard for her. And so she, at some point, and a couple of times, says, we need to stop doing this. I can't see you anymore. And as a result, Sokka, just feeling kind of, frustrated and numb in that regard, volunteers to help defend the city. He volunteers for a special dangerous mission, but then it's not really clear what he's doing that's different. He's kind of just on the front lines, I guess. He also, as a result, meets Han, I think was the character, who is the boy that Princess Yue is supposed to meet. And he's a jerk. He's a blowhard. Arrogant. But what's kind of cool is that the leader of the southern or the northern tribe recognizes not only Sokka's valuable knowledge, but his skills as a warrior, and praises him openly in front of everybody. And, even though he's not put in charge, um, he tells the people who are in charge to respect him. Um, and so that's kind of cool because, we realize that having been through this world's journey from the South Pole, having encountered the Fire Nation many times, including many of the high-ranking officers, he's the one that's immediately able to say, no, your plan to infiltrate isn't going to work because that uniform is out of date. They're going to recognize it immediately. And I happen to know who's in charge, and it's this guy, and he's like this. And so that's kind of cool to have Sokka be able to shine a little bit there. But of course, the fly in the ointment is that the guy he's supposed to be advising is Yue's betrothed, and he doesn't even seem to care about her. She doesn't love him, and he's almost disinterested in her, but he's interested in marrying her so that he can be important in the eyes of the chief. And so they fight, and it's kind of all pointless. It's one of those things where you kind of want to say, like, yeah, I guess so, but at the same time, there's priorities, you guys, right now. I mean, there's kind of an attack going on. And sure enough, when the chief comes in and basically takes Sokka off the mission, it seems like punishment at first, but then the chief reveals, oh, but it's actually so that I can assign you to protect my daughter. Which is nice, except it puts just Sokka right back in that position of awkwardness again, having to work with her. And, I should, we also had that scene earlier where he was flying with her on Appa and just getting close to her. And it's clear that there's a real connection, there's a real chemistry there, except that there's just this betrothal. And there's also something that's not 100% clear what is meant by it, but it's sort of a flag being sent up to alert us that something else is going on. Because one of the things that the chief says when he's talking to the assembled troops is something about how they're going to call upon the spirits for aid, and there will be 3 faces that we won't see anymore. And what we see is the 3 faces that are shown when he says that are Princess Yue, the waterbending master, and Han. And it's not clear what he means by that. And we're not really given any other clue what is meant by that. In the meantime, we also, let's, rewind and talk about Aang and Katara, and it makes sense to have them together. We open the episode with Katara in a waterbending sparring match with a kid, and there's just a fantastic shot of him, the guy she's up against, looking kind of nervous, and her just smiling like, I'm going to eat you alive. And of course, we get the reveal that she's been just really taking to the waterbending fighting far more than the master anticipated, and pretty much, implying that she's really great. But then also, by contrast, showing that Aang's kind of goofing around and not working very hard at it. Which is one of those things. It's kind of like, this is the complexity of this show, is that we have our hero, the Avatar, master of the 4 elements, who kind of wants to just build a snowman out of himself instead of concentrate on the important stuff. We had earlier in the season all of this trauma with how little time there was for him to learn, and all of these things like their choice to try to force the firebending master to teach them, because when might we get another opportunity like this? And now he's here to learn waterbending, and he's kind of screwing around. When the attack starts, we get a lot of my camera stuff is frozen. I wish it wouldn't do that. Okay, so it seems like it's all right. We get some awesome stuff with the attack starts with Aang kind of running circles around the people on one Fire Nation ship and wrecking all of their catapults. But the Fire Nation has dozens and dozens of ships. And Aang kind of, after that, the first day of the attack, when it stops for the night, he's just in this position of, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep this up. There's too many of them. What do we do? And he's getting kind of discouraged. And so Princess Yua actually suggests that they consult the spirits for help. Or I guess Katara and Yua sort of come up with that idea together. And they go to this nexus where Aang is going to meditate and try to commune with the spirits and ask for either wisdom or just a big spirit attack to destroy the Fire Nation. So, one or the other. And so we don't really get to see what Aang is seeing as he enters the Avatar state and begins to meditate. We assume that we will get to find that out in the next episode. And but almost immediately upon him going into this state and us being told that it's important for Aang's body to stay where it is for him to find his way back, that's when Zuko shows up. And this is, rematch between Zuko and Katara. And he's tough, but she's tough too, and she's learned a lot. And he even comments on, clearly you've found a master, and they're going back and forth, and they're doing really well. And she actually manages to immobilize him in ice. And we're really happy about that. But then we are also reminded, but this is at night with the full moon up. The waterbenders are stronger. And then when the morning comes, the firebenders are stronger. And now Zuko is able to defeat her. And so he is able to basically knock her out and run away with Aang's meditating body. And so Katara is really distraught that, he took Aang out from under me, and she's bummed. And we want to, at the same time, reassure her that, you did awesome. It was, even if it wasn't enough, but at the same time, this isn't going very well for them right now, because it's clear that the Fire Nation, although being held back so far by the defenses, they're going to overwhelm them. There's too many of them, and they've breached the front wall, and now Zuko has run off with Aang's body, and what's going to happen? Well, we'll just have to find out next week in Season 1, Episode 20, Siege of the Northern Air Tribe, or Northern Water Tribe, Part 2. Season 1 finale. And all very exciting. Okay, so I'll talk to you guys tomorrow for 5 more minutes, and next week about the finale of Season 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Bye now.